Felix Bautista and the Orioles found a way to hang on and win that game on Sunday. Unfortunately, it was their only win of the weekend. I'll recap the Orioles series loss to the Rays coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Monday, July 21st, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap the Orioles series loss to the Tampa Bay Rays over the weekend. I'll give you a recap of the pretty bad Friday loss to open up the post-All-Star break portion of the season. We'll talk about Jackson Holliday coming oh so close to flipping that game on Saturday, and then we'll discuss a good Trevor Rogers start coming after a good Dean Kremer start and how the Orioles found a way to avoid the sweep and get the win on Sunday. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So we're going to jump into this series recap between the Orioles and the Rays, but do just want to let you know off the top that we did a giveaway on the show last week to celebrate reaching over 9,000 subscribers here on the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. That is thanks to all of you. If you have not subscribed yet, make sure to go and do that. And if you are just a listener, that is totally amazing as well. If you could subscribe or follow wherever you listen, that's Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever, that really helps out the show as well. But we did a giveaway last week, or at least did the entries. What you had to do was subscribe on YouTube and then leave in the comments section what is your favorite Orioles trade of all time, in honor of the trade deadline being just 10 days away. And I am giving out an Orioles Hawaiian shirt as the prize. Well, I have the winner, and is going to be announced at the end of this episode. So make sure to stick around for the end. We'll be announcing the winner of the Orioles Hawaiian shirt. But let's get into the baseball from the weekend. The O's coming off the All-Star break. Ryan O'Hearn going to Atlanta as the Orioles' only All-Star. The O's get 4 days off without any games and then come down to Tampa to play a series against a Rays team who came into the break pretty slowly. They're still right there in the middle of AL wildcard contention. The Orioles, they've pretty much fallen out of it, as we have, I think, realized at this point. But the O's could at least play spoiler. Maybe you could argue one final chance that they went in and swept a Rays team ahead of them, that they could still make some noise. Well, that did not happen, and that did not happen pretty quickly because things started with an 11-1 loss to the Rays on Friday night. Let's start with, well, what went right on Friday night for the Orioles? Well, that was that Gunnar Henderson is really hitting right now. Gunnar went 2 for 4 with a double, a triple, and 3 hard hit balls in this game. Colton Cowser also had 3 hits in that game, which was nice to see, but that was the Orioles' only 5 hits against the Rays on Friday night. They scored a run and an RBI ground out in the 9th inning. That was the only time they crossed home plate. Taj Bradley, who the Orioles have really hit around over the years. Bradley went 6 scoreless against the Orioles in this game, and the Rays bullpen came in and did its job. But Gunnar really heating up finally. Remember in that crazy win against this Rays team, that 22-8 win over the Rays back on June 27th at Oriole Park. Gunnar had 4 hits in that game. That broke him out of a little mini 0 for 13 slump he was in. And since that game, he has just been raking. These stats are through play on Friday, so it doesn't even include a couple of more hits he got over the weekend. But in the 66 plate appearances since, Gunnar hitting 333, 364 on base, a 651 slugging. That is a 180 WRC plus, 80% better than league average in that stretch, with 3 homers, 12 extra base hits, a 54% hard hit rate, which is elite, a 14% barrel rate, which is elite. He is looking like, MVP candidate level Gunnar Henderson that we saw for a lot of last year. That's what we've seen from Gunnar over the last month or so. And before that 4-hit game back on June 27th, Gunnar had just 8 homers and 24 extra base hits in 309 plate appearances, then had 3 of them, 12 extra base hits in the next 66. His barrel rate has doubled in this stretch since what he was doing the first few months of the season. And he's mostly just looking like normal Gunnar, just he's not hitting the ball in the air with impact. That is the big difference here. The fact that he only has 11 home runs on the season when he was pushing 40 last year. That's the huge difference. He's not getting that amount of torque and lift to hit the ball with damage in the air. He's finally been doing that, though, over the past few weeks and is being rewarded at the plate. Now, what went wrong in Friday's loss, and that was Charlie Morton's hot streak, was kind of stopped in this one. Coming in, Morton had a 2.61 ERA in his previous 11 outings and had completely flipped himself back into a trade piece for the Orioles at the deadline. And I think he still is that, but it wasn't a great start on Friday. Really started in the first inning, allowed a couple of runners on, and then hung an 0-1 curveball to Junior Caminero, who had just come off a great performance in the home run derby, and he kind of continued his derby, crushing a ball to left center field for a 3-run homer to put the Rays up 3-0 in the first inning. And really, all the issues early in the year from Charlie Morton were about the command, and the command was just not great on Friday night. His velo was also down about a mile per hour on every pitch, so that's something to watch. You know, he did deal with a little bit of elbow pain a couple of weeks back, so something to look at. But this start for Morton, again, he gives up a 3-run homer in the first. He gives up another run in the second, in the third. The sixth inning kind of gets away from him as he comes out of the game. His final line was not pretty. It was 5 1/3, 7 runs, 8 hits, 4 Ks, 3 walks, 2 homers on 86 pitches. A lot of hard hit balls from the Rays in this game. But I don't think it tanks his trade value, right? Smart teams aren't going to look at one start versus the previous 11 and weigh that higher. They're going to look at the entire body of work. He's still been pitching much, much better as of late. And he's going to get, if the Orioles hold him all the way until the deadline, Morton's going to get 2 more starts before the deadline, which is next Thursday, the 31st. And really, if he looks like this in those 2 starts as well, maybe the Orioles lose the chance to trade him. But as long as he gets back to the Morton we've seen recently, he'll be fine. I will say I would try to trade him sooner rather than later, because the longer you hold on to him, again, there's really not much of a reason for the Orioles to not trade Morton and not do everything they can to deal him and hold him for the rest of this year. That's not really a point in that at this point. So you're trying to deal him at any point now. I mean, if you hold him longer, he starts again this week, he gets shelled again, then you're getting into dangerous territory getting closer to the deadline. So I would try to move him as soon as you can at this point. But it's also good to remember that this is now a 12-game streak where he's still been good. It's still a 3.47 ERA in the last 12 outings. And the only 2 games out of those 12 where he looked bad and where he allowed more than 3 earned runs in any of those were the 2 games he played in these Mickey Mouse minor league ballparks. He allowed 4 runs in 2 1/3 innings, June 7th in Sacramento against the A's. And then here in this spring training facility, he allows 7. So when he's pitching in a real major league park, he's been incredible in his last 10 outings. Hopefully we see that. He'll most likely pitch in Cleveland this week. Hopefully we'll see more of that, and then the Orioles can get him dealt away. And then the shout out for Friday goes to Corbin Martin. Martin, a right-hander who the Orioles brought in on waivers last season, a pitcher. He was a former Astros second-round pick in 2017 when Mike Elias was kind of the run in the draft over there. He stayed in AAA Norfolk all of last year, was back there this season, but the Orioles finally called him up on July 2nd, and he looked really good in Texas in his first big league outing since 2022. Then last weekend, Martin kind of got DFA'd among the injury-riddled roster shuffle that the Orioles were going through. He cleared waivers, elected to become a free agent, and the Orioles this week just re-signed him to a major league deal. So it was an open spot. They put him right back on the roster, and he put up another scoreless outing out of the Oriole bullpen on Friday night. It was a completely lopsided game at that point, but no runs allowed in 2 1/3 innings so far. I'm not sure if he'll stick with this bullpen throughout the rest of the year, but as the Orioles start to trade away a few relievers, which they will do in the next couple of weeks, maybe he gets more of a chance. Maybe he stays in the bullpen. The O's can really see what they have in this former top pitching prospect who Elias certainly likes. And then the stuff has looked solid the 2 times we've seen Martin out there, but he really couldn't do anything as the Rays, they got to Morton and Wolfram and scored 6 in the 6th, then went on to an 11-1 win in game 1. But the Orioles, I will say, they did play much, much better baseball in game 2 on Saturday. Dean Kremer was awesome, but it wasn't quite enough as the O's blew a late lead. Tell you what happened in Saturday's loss coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And if you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's at supplyhouse.com. So the Orioles got crushed on Friday night in Tampa to open up their post-All-Star break. It is not the second half. You're about 60% of the way through the season when you hit the All-Star break. I'm not calling it the second half. But either way, they played poorly. They played a lot better baseball on Saturday, but still couldn't get it done with a 4-3 loss to the Rays in Game 2 of this series. But let's start with what went right. And what went right is Dean Kremer. And let's just take a moment here, as I kind of mentioned in the title of this episode, to appreciate what Dean Kremer is doing and what he has done in an Oriole uniform, because he was just outstanding again. Kremer has dominated the Rays this season. He has made 3 starts against Tampa Bay this year, has allowed just 2 runs on 10 hits in 19 innings with 16 strikeouts to 6 walks, and he's dominated the Rays in his career. Now, I don't love looking at career stats versus a whole team because teams change year to year, players change year to year. It doesn't really show you much, but it is nice to have a pitcher who's pitching really well against a division opponent. Dean Kremer has a 1.83 ERA now in 10 career starts against the Tampa Bay Rays, and he has just been incredible lately. And he continued that on Saturday. 7 innings of 1-run ball on 3 hits. He struck out 6. He walked 3, no homers, 98 pitches. Just two total hard hit balls against him by Rays hitters. And after that disastrous April, his ERA is down to 4.06. One more good start, and he's at a sub-4 ERA after he was pushing 8+ in the first month of the season. He's just been incredible since then. Had the horrible April, and since May 1st, Dean Kremer has thrown 84 2/3 innings and has a 2.98 ERA in that stretch. He's just been amazing. And in his last 6 games, he's been even better. 36 innings, 26 hits, 8 earned runs. That's a 2.00 ERA in his last 6 outings, 33 strikeouts to 9 walks, and just 2 home runs. A guy who has had some struggles with the home run ball in the past. It's just not hurting him right now. What does he do? He's got the 2 different fastballs, the 4-seamer and the sinker. He just pounds the zone. He's got like a 65% in-zone rate on both of those pitches. That is incredible. Throwing the pitches on the corners, high, low, mixing speeds. It's good stuff. It's on the corners. And then he gets his swings and misses with his whiff pitch, which is the splitter, and especially attacking lefties with it. But he also throws it to righties because he's trusting it so much right now. And even the curveball, right? Remember when Kremer came up in 2020, the curveball was seen as like his main secondary pitch. It's gone away to like a 5th offering at this point for Kremer, and he only threw it 7 times out of his 98 pitches in this start. But he got 3 whiffs on those 7 curveballs. They came at huge spots. 2 of his 6 strikeouts came on the curveball just because Rays hitters, I guess, weren't expecting it when he dropped that big 12-6 curveball in there. And I just wanted to take this moment to appreciate Kremer because he just, I don't think, not only does not get enough credit, but I think he gets too much hate. And maybe this is just more of like an online fans thing, and more fans do appreciate Kremer, and I know they do, but I think because he is the only player remaining from the 2018 trade deadline. He is the only guy the Orioles really got anything from the Manny Machado deal when he came over from the Dodgers. He's the only guy left on the team from that huge sell-off at the deadline. It was, objectively, I would say that sell-off was a failure in terms of what Dan Duquette was able to get back that year. But Kremer has stuck, and, he was touted as a potential ace. He was like leading the minor leagues in strikeouts at that point of the trade that season. And he's never turned into that ace-type pitcher. But I say it every year about Dean Kremer. If Kremer is your number 5 starter, you're in an incredible spot as a big league rotation. And I understand that you could argue Kremer's the Orioles' number one. He's no lower than their number three right now. That's how well he's been pitching. But if you settle in at the beginning of the season and Kremer's your 4 or 5, you are in a great spot. He's just consistent. He'll hit the IL for a stint for a little bit every once in a while, but generally stays healthy. He throws innings, and he's done it for years now. I mean, Kremer first came up in 2020. He debuted with a few starts. He showed some flashes. Came back in 2021, and that year was just a disaster. He got destroyed in the majors, went down to AAA, wasn't great down there either. And we had a lot of questions about Kremer heading into 2022. He was actually set to begin the year in the bullpen as the long reliever, but when he was warming up for his first outing of the year, actually in Tampa Bay, suffered an oblique issue, ended up missing the first 2 months of the year on the injured list. And when he returned in June, the Orioles needed starting pitching. So Kremer actually did go into the rotation when he returned on June 5th of 2022. And since then, he's been one of the more reliable and consistent starters in all of Major League Baseball. Among qualified starting pitchers since June 5th of 2022, when Kremer returned to the rotation, he's thrown 97 games, 95 of them starts. 2 of them have been like long, follower outings after an opener. A 3.93 ERA in 536 innings pitched in that stretch. That is 22nd in innings pitched and 15th in ERA among qualified starting pitchers. Now, that stat is a little misleading because since June 5th of 2022, only 23 starting pitchers in Major League Baseball have thrown enough innings to be qualified, and Kremer is 22nd in innings and 15th in ERA. So in that sense, it doesn't look as good, but think about it like that. At any given time, there are 5 starting pitchers on 30 Major League teams. You're looking at around the league at any given time, 150 starting pitchers. And then you think about how many pitching injuries there are. I mean, the Orioles have used, I believe 10 starters at this point already this year. Like, you're pushing 200 plus starting pitchers at least every season. And this is going back to 2022. And only 23, that's not even one per team, 23 of those starting pitchers have thrown enough innings and stayed healthy enough since then to be qualified for big league stats. I'm not exactly sure what the qualified number is, but generally there's a formula that shows it. But if you hit around, I think 130 or 140 innings in a year, you end up being qualified. Only 23 pitchers have done that since June of 2022. So for Kremer just to be in that group, even though he's not at the top of it, the top of those names are some of the better pitchers in baseball, but just to be in that group shows he's staying generally healthy. And again, it's a 3.93 ERA, so he's been very serviceable that entire time. If you're throwing that many innings, giving your team a sub-4 ERA, you are a very useful starting pitcher. And if you look at that list of 23, there's really only one pitcher in that group who I would consider like a bad starter, and that is what Patrick Corbin has done, mostly for the Nationals, then a little this year for the Rangers in that stretch. And Patrick Corbin is his own thing because he was great before that. And then the Nats were terrible. He was on a big money contract, and they just threw him out there every day, even though he was posting like 5 to 6 ERAs every season. They just had him pitch and eat innings every 5 days, no matter what. So outside of Corbin, the other 22 pitchers, including Kremer, I believe there's only one that has an ERA over 4. Like, these guys are good and they stay healthy to be qualified. That is a cool group to be in this era of pitching with all the injuries. We've especially seen them all from the Orioles this year. The best ability for a pitcher might just be availability. And Dean Kremer has had that availability. So I really just wanted to take some time to appreciate him and what he's done for this Orioles team. He's not an ace. He never will be. He'll have his ups and downs. He has bad starts. But this is consistency that the Orioles, and you can't even guarantee it one per team because only 23 guys have given this level of consistency to their teams in the past basically 3 years, and Dean Kremer is one of them. And he's a free agent after 2027, so he even has 2 more years after this season where he's under contract. And there's some Orioles fans, when he pitches poorly, that are ready to get rid of him. Like, don't sleep on how valuable Kremer may continue to be over the next 2 seasons and change for this Orioles rotation, even if you get to the end of the year and you're not feeling great about Dean Kremer starting playoff games. The one time he has started a playoff game, it did not go well back in Texas in 2023. But he is such an important part of this roster. He's stayed generally healthy over the past few years, what the rest of this rotation hasn't really done. And I just want to give him his flowers after another fantastic start in Tampa Bay on Saturday. And what went wrong is the Orioles couldn't hold that lead that Dean Kremer helped them get to, because the eighth inning was not good. The Orioles were leading the Rays 2-1 heading into the bottom of the eighth, and they went to Seranthony Dominguez, who has been their best reliever this year, is going to be one of their top trade chips, allowed just 2 earned runs in his previous 19 appearances, but he did allow a run in his last outing before the All-Star break. And for the first time since May 3rd and May 7th, Dominguez allowed earned runs in back-to-back outings, and that was the only time he has done this all year. Now, it wasn't horrendous at first, but he got in a spot where there was a runner on third and 1 out. Orioles leading 2-1, got a 2-2 count on Chandler Simpson, and just made a bad pitch selection. He ends up throwing a sweeper. It hangs in the middle of the plate. Simpson lines it up the middle for an RBI base hit to tie the game at 2. Now, against right-handed hitters this year, the lefty Simpson is hitting .402 against fastballs, .308 against breaking balls, and .121 against off speeds. That's changeups and splitters. Dominguez's splitter is filthy against lefties. They're hitting .127 with a 56% swing and miss rate against the splitter. Meanwhile, lefties are hitting .500 against his sweeper. Throw your splitter 2-2. For some reason, I guess to try to fool Simpson, he goes sweeper. It ends up in the middle of the plate, and it's a 2-2 game. So not a great outing. Then he walked 2 batters for the first time since May 19th. Got himself into trouble, loads the bases with 1 out, and has to come out of the game. And similar to Charlie Morton, right? I don't think this one outing tanks his trade value, but please don't do it again in these next couple of outings over the next week or so before he gets traded. Then, he's still going to get dealt, but we're going to have an issue in terms of what his value is. So it's a 2-2 game. Tony Mansolino goes to Gregory Soto to face the lefty Jonathan Aranda to try and keep the game tied, and he does his job. Soto, perfect slider off the outside corner on the first pitch. Aranda rolls it over to first base. O'Hearn may have had time to throw to second to get the double play, but you can't take that chance when you feel like you have the automatic out at home, because if you don't roll it, you give the Rays the lead in the bottom of the 8th inning. So O'Hearn fields it, spins, throws home. Even with Simpson, the speedy Simpson running home, he had time to get him, and O'Hearn makes just a horrendous throw. It bounces past Jacob Stallings, goes to the backstop, 2-run score, and the Rays take a 4-2 lead. Soto did a nice job of actually eventually getting himself out of the jam to keep it at 4-2. He actually looked really good in that outing. It obviously was not his fault on the error by O'Hearn, but just more bad baseball, mess after mess for the Orioles this season. The 8th inning on Saturday was another one, and that's how they got to that point. But the shout out too for the Orioles, the shout out goes to the Orioles in the top of the 9th, because you give up 3 in the bottom half. You're down 4-2. The Rays are going to Pete Fairbanks, who's generally been great against the Orioles in his career. And they didn't give up, right? The Orioles had those 2 runs. Top of the first inning, they scored 2 against Zach Littell and essentially did nothing offensively for the next 7 innings. They did have 6 hits during that stretch. You got 3 from Westberg, a couple of doubles from Ramon Arias, which was nice to see, but nothing came of it. And then in the 9th, they get to Pete Fairbanks a little bit. Tyler O'Neill with a 1-out double, just his 4th double of the season, and his first since April 5th. That was nice to see. He also had 3 hard hit balls for the second time in his last 3 games. You love to see that from a slumping O'Neill. And then Cedric Mullins comes out as a pinch hitter, a little bloop RBI single with 2 outs into right field, makes it 4-3. And then Mullins steals second. He puts the tying run in scoring position for Jackson Holliday. And Holliday worked a really good at-bat against Fairbanks and was oh so close. Holliday, who already had 2 hits in the game, 3-2 hanging slider, crushes it dead center field, 401 feet away, 106 off the bat. It's gone anywhere else in this Mickey Mouse ballpark, but it is a regular distance away in center field. And although it wouldn't have gone out, Chandler Simpson makes a leaping catch against the wall. At the very least, it would have been an RBI double to tie the game. And for the Orioles, it would have been a home run in 10 of 30 ballparks, just not in this one. And inches away from a 2-run homer that gives the O's the lead in the top of the 9th. And instead, their soul-crushing loss as they fall 4-3 and looking down the barrel of a potential sweep on Sunday. But luckily, the O's got another good start Sunday, and this time it was just enough offense and just enough relievers to hold on to avoid the sweep and get the win. I'll tell you how they did it to finish off the series and finish off the show coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action, why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach, and it's easy to use, fast to pay out, and FanDuel makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. A parlay, A bet in the ninth inning makes you feel like you're part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Just open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. So the Orioles, after losing the first two games of this series, had lost 4 in a row at that point, because remember, they lost the final 2 games to the Marlins before the All-Star break and were in danger of getting swept by the Rays on the road, but they found a way to pull out a 5-3 win on Sunday to avoid the sweep. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from that Sunday victory. And the first thing you need to know is Trevor Rogers just continues to motor along. And we're getting closer and closer to being able to call this like legitimate, real improvement that Rogers has made to get to this point. Like, it still could go the other direction. Absolutely. But it's 7 starts now with a 1.74 ERA on the season. And only one of the 7 starts has he allowed even 3 earned runs. Now, he's still allowing a very high hard hit rate, 51% coming in. That's going up because the Rays were at a 63% hard hit rate on non-bunts on Sunday. So you worry that could potentially turn on him. But Rogers is running a minuscule 4% barrel rate allowed. That is super low, and it's really good to go with his 47% ground ball rate, which is very high. Now, I mean, he didn't miss a lot of the bats on Sunday. He got just 6 swings and misses from Rays hitters, but he's still able to pitch well in a hitter's ballpark versus a good lineup against a team that got to him. Really, his only bad start was against the Rays in this park a couple of weeks ago. And he recovered to just throw the ball well again. 6 innings of 2-run ball for Trevor Rogers on 5 hits, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks, and a home run allowed on 91 pitches. Now, the Rays hit him hard, as I mentioned, but he made the pitches when he needed to get out of jams and to work through 6 innings. He probably doesn't come back out for the 7th, even if there's not a rain delay at 91 pitches, but he still just pitched super, super well in this game. Really, the only trouble he got in was on 2 sweepers versus righties. They led to the Junior Caminero RBI single in the 3rd, and they led to the Danny Jansen solo home run in the 4th. Those were the only 2 runs that Rogers allowed, and it was because of that left-on-right sweeper leaving it in the middle of the plate. Now, lefties throwing sweepers to righties generally is a bad idea. Those pitches are crushed time and time again, mostly because of the movement of the sweeper. It's like a slider, but it's a little slower and it's more horizontal, so it goes down less. So it's easier for a righty to see the ball just breaking directly towards him and to hit it. But Rogers has actually thrown that pitch to success. His command, that sweeper is a new pitch that he's added here in 2025, and he's had such good command of it lately that he's, it's been better and dominant and thrown it more against lefties, but he's felt confident throwing it even against righties because he's been so good at just dotting that thing on the outside corner, backdooring that sweeper, and fooling guys when they least expect it. Because coming into Sunday, he had not allowed a single hit to a right-handed batter against that sweeper. Now, he doesn't throw it a ton, but that's still pretty surprising. What he learned Sunday was if you throw it in the middle of the plate, which he did both to Caminero and Jansen on their 2 hits, you're going to get burned, especially by good hitters. If you keep it on the corners, you can still throw it, but it's something to think about for Rogers. He's got that good changeup. The sweeper mixes things up, but that was the only time he got in trouble. Otherwise, he had that bad error by Alex Jackson on the bunt in the 4th, and then he just got 2 huge outs to get himself out of that jam. His 2nd inning was really good with a couple of strikeouts. I mean, he's just throwing strikes. We didn't see him throw strikes last year. He's throwing strikes this year. He's getting better and better. I mean, Ken Rosenthal did report last week the Orioles are listening to offers on Trevor Rogers. He's signed through next year, although he did also report it is unlikely that they will deal him. There's no harm in listening to offers, but I think he's going to be a big part of this rotation. More importantly, later this year, that is next year, and he's showing what he can do now as an Oriole. Second thing you need to know from Sunday's win is that if your name is Jackson, you hit a home run on Sunday. Started with a leadoff home run for Jackson Holliday, his 13th of the season, in his very next at-bat after just missing the go-ahead homer in the 9th on Saturday. Gets a changeup from Ryan Pepio, drills it into right center field for a solo home run. Now, they didn't hit the ball super hard, only 95.5 off the bat. And StatCast said that only would have been a home run in 2 of 30 ballparks, with Tampa being one of them. So thank you to the Mickey Mouse ballpark in this one. He deserved that after not getting the home run on Saturday. And then how about Alex Jackson, the Orioles' new backup catcher? He earned one himself. A solo shot off Pepio in the 3rd to lead off the inning, made it 2-0 Orioles. 405 feet to left field, 103 off the bat. Just the 7th career home run for Jackson, and his first as an Oriole, and his first home run since July 27th of 2024 at the Trop while he was playing for the Rays. Hit that one off the Cincinnati Reds. Now, Jackson did make, as I mentioned, a terrible throw and an error on a bunt later in the game. But with his age, he's still under 30, with his offensive ceiling, with the incredible bat speed that he has shown, if you're going to have Alex Jackson and Jacob Stallings be your two catchers at this point, I would rather have Jackson get the main catching duties, or at the very least have the two of them split time. Right now, Stallings is clearly the starter and Jackson is clearly the backup, but I'd rather them at least split time, maybe with more Jackson just because of the offensive ceiling. And when Adley does return and he's taking strides and is looking to go out on a rehab assignment this week, which is good news, I'd probably rather keep Alex Jackson over Jacob Stallings if I had my choice. Again, it's not a huge decision at this point in the Orioles season, but I think he gives you more to take a look at if you do keep him around. Third thing you need to know from this win is the Orioles did score some runs in some other ways as well. There was also a solo home run from Ryan O'Hearn. That was in the 6th inning to make it a 5-2 game off of Pepio. And O'Hearn, who is starting to come around. He, was great in the first 2 months. That kind of led him to his All-Star appearance, but he has slowed down recently, had just a 609 OPS in June, but he's turned it back around to a 746 OPS in July. And this solo homer, that was his first home run since June 24th, almost a month since Ryan O'Hearn had hit the ball out of the ballpark. So that was at least nice to see him hit a ball out. I mean, again, he hasn't been the same hitter over the past month and change. He's still obviously very much in the thick of trade conversations, but good to see him do that. And for the Orioles, they hit 3 home runs in this game, and it's been almost a month since they had a 3-homer game. First time since June 27th, in that 22-8 win over the Rays. They hit 4 homers in that one. So it has been a little bit, they did hit 3 home runs against Atlanta on July 5th, but still they haven't been hitting a lot of home runs lately. So good to see them hit the ball out of the ballpark in this one. Unfortunately, they were all solo shots, but there was more scoring as well. They had a 3-run 3rd inning off Ryan Pepio after the Alex Jackson solo homer. It went Jackson Holiday walk, Jordan Westburg single, Gunnar Henderson 2-run double to make it a 4-0 game. 5th double in his last 7 games for Gunnar, which is nice to see. And I thought they might get some runs off our old friend Brian Baker. He pitched the top of the 9th inning in a 5-2 game. Just his second appearance as a Ray and his first against his old team in the Orioles since the trade a couple of weeks ago. Tyler O'Neill did get a leadoff double, but the Orioles stranded him there. So Baker gets the first laugh facing his old team. Fourth thing you need to know from Sunday's win is that a long rain delay put this one on pause. As soon as Cedric Mullins was making a running catch in center field to end the bottom of the 6th inning, it just started pouring. And this was a 12 o'clock game on a Sunday, because the Rays are playing outside. They're trying to avoid those pop-up Florida afternoon showers that happen all the time, especially in the summer. But the grounds crew was trying to roll the tarp out there, and they did just an absolutely horrendous job. Shades of, if you remember, the Washington Nationals grounds crew disaster against the Orioles back in 2020. This one was just as bad. It took them so long to just unroll the tarp. It was getting caught. It was getting folded, and it just poured on that field as they struggled and struggled and struggled. And when it finally stopped raining, they had to also take so much time to work on the field because it just took on so much water. Ended up being a 2-hour, 36-minute rain delay that we had to wait through, which was a long time for everyone. Had to be especially a long time for Tony Mansolino, who was actually ejected early in this game, arguing a strike swing call on Ramon Laureano. Mansolino ejected for the first time in his career as Orioles manager. Then he has to wait through another 2.5-hour delay and then wait for the game to end. Not really sure what Mansolino was up to during the delay. I wonder if he's allowed to be in the clubhouse while they're all back in there. Not really sure the rule of that one, but just funny to have his first ejection come at that point and then have this huge rain delay. But the 5th and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 5-3 win over the Rays on Sunday to avoid the sweep is that the Orioles bullpen, after the delay, was able to come in and find a way to close it out. Yennier Cano had a 7-pitch 1-2-3 7th. It was the fewest pitches he has thrown in a full inning since April 29th of 2023, when he threw 6 pitches to get 3 outs against the Detroit Tigers. Andrew Kittredge put up another 0 in the 8th inning. 8 of his last 9 appearances have been scoreless. He has another potential trade chip for the Orioles in a couple weeks. And then Felix Bautista came in the 9th, Orioles leading 5-2, looking for his 19th save, and he got it. but it was not pretty. He had not pitched in 10 days because of the All-Star break and the Orioles not winning a lot of games. It was his first multi-walk game since May 31st, and it was a 3-walk game for Bautista for just the third time in his career when he walked 3, but he is now actually 3 for 3 in saves in games in which he walks 3 batters, so it generally works out okay for him. The concerning part is that the velo was down. He was throwing just 94 miles an hour on his fastball early in that outing. It did get better. He was up to 96, 97, getting the final outs, but that still wasn't great to see. And it took him 34 pitches, because not only did he walk 3 and give up a run for the first time in his last 6 outings, but he also loaded the bases. He also went 3-0 to Junior Caminero. Caminero helped him out swinging a 3-1 pitch well out of the zone that would have been ball 4, made it 5-4. Honestly, Gregory Soto was warming. Manzanino probably would have gone to Soto against the lefty and not even let Bautista finish this game out. But 34 pitches, he ends it with a strikeout on a 3-2 fastball to get the 5-3 win. 34 pitches is the second most he has ever thrown in his career. He once threw 35 pitches in a game in 2023, but that was in a multi-inning outing when he threw an inning and 2/3. 34 pitches, the most Bautista has ever thrown in a single inning. It was not pretty, but he got the job done, got the save, and got the Orioles win to avoid the sweep, and they get a W. They're very much out of it. They are 44-54 now on the season. And if you pull up kind of a live standings look here at about 6 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday, it's 13.5 games out of the AL East. It is still 8.5 games back of the Red Sox for the final wild card spot with 6 teams between the Orioles and Boston. People, it is not happening. Just going to continue to give you updates on that, but unfortunately it is just way too big of a hole to dig, but nice to see the Orioles win a game and avoid the sweep here on Sunday. That'll do it for the episode, but first, got to announce the Hawaiian shirt winner, and my congratulations go out to Dudley Parr 9817 on YouTube. Again, that is Dudley Parr 9817 on YouTube. Dudley Parr's comment on favorite trade of Orioles all time was, quote, "I'm showing my age with this one, but my favorite trade was in 1965, which brought Frank Robinson to the Orioles. He was the league MVP and won the Triple Crown, not to mention the O's won the World Series in 4 in 1966. And that was, I will say, a very popular one for people to bring up. Listen, you get a Hall of Famer in a trade like that. You get a guy who ended up winning MVP the year after in 66 and basically led the Orioles to that World Series victory, their first ever. That is certainly one of the greatest, if not the greatest trade in Orioles history. That full trade, December 9th, 1965, the Orioles sent Jack Baldwin and Milt Pappas and Dick Simpson to the Cincinnati Reds for Frank Robinson. And it certainly worked out for the O's, winning a couple of championships with Robinson and having him be one of the greatest players in Orioles and in Major League Baseball history. So again, congratulations to Dudley Parr 9817. Please send me an email, lockedOnOrioles@gmail.com, and you can claim your prize of the Orioles Hawaiian shirt. That'll do it for today. Orioles and Guardians starting tonight as the O's go to Cleveland. This Cleveland team trying to stay in the playoff mix. They currently sit at 48-50. It'll be game 1 of a 4-game set. Tomoyuki Sugano will make his first start post All-Star break. He was really struggling going into the break, but then he did have one good start there before things completely fell apart when he was able to go out there against the Mets on June 10th and give the Orioles 6 innings of 3-run ball. He will go up against Tanner Bybee, the 26-year-old right-handed pitcher who sports a 4.29 ERA in 19 starts this season. His last start was before the break, 5 2/3 innings of 2-run ball against the Chicago White Sox. And I'll be back on Tuesday recapping everything you need to know from game 1 between the Orioles and the Guardians. We'll have an update on the Orioles draft pick signings. They almost have their entire class signed. We'll also tell you about the handful of undrafted free agents the Orioles have signed after the draft as well. And then we will also get you some injury updates. We got some positive updates on guys like Adley and Kyle Bradish. We also got some negative updates on Grayson Rodriguez over the weekend. I'll get to all of those on tomorrow's episode. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.